everyone, and welcome back. Today we're doing a deep dive into effortless abundance, the missing pieces to living an abundant life effortlessly.
Ooh, that's a mouthful.
It is, right?
Yeah.
So this is just a single PDF, but it's really fascinating. It
Yeah.
claims to hold the secrets to unlocking a life full of abundance.
Well, let's see if it lives up to that promise.
Exactly. I mean, who wouldn't want a life of effortless abundance, right?
Sign me up.
So let's dive in and see what we can uncover.
Right.
One of the things that struck me right away was the author's unique perspective on abundance. You know, it's not about chasing after wealth or success like we often hear.
Right. It's not about that hustle mentality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's more about identifying and removing those obstacles that prevent abundance from naturally flowing into our lives.
It's almost like abundance is already there waiting for us.
It is kind of like that, huh?
Yeah.
It's like it's already there, but something's blocking it.
Exactly. And that's what we need to uncover. Like, what's in the way?
So instead of striving for more, it's about allowing more in.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
I'm really curious to explore this approach further.
Me too.
The author uses a really powerful analogy to illustrate this concept.
Oh, I love a good analogy.
Yeah, they compare abundance to a river that's constantly flowing towards you.
Okay, I can see where this is going.
But there might be blockages in the river, like rocks or debris that obstruct its path.
Right, like a dam or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And those blockages represent our internal barriers. You know, the things that prevent us from fully experiencing abundance.
Makes sense.
I really like that analogy. It makes it so much easier to visualize.
It does. It's like you can almost see the river flowing and then bam, you hit a wall.
Exactly. So what kind of internal barriers are we talking about here? What are these metaphorical rocks and debris?
Well, the PDF goes into various types of blockages, but one of the most common ones is actually the idea of cultivating an abundance mindset.
Oh, that's interesting, because we hear so much about developing an abundance mindset in the self-help world.
Right. It's like a cornerstone of so many teachings.
Yeah, so what's the author's take on this? Are they saying it's a bad thing?
Not necessarily. The author acknowledges that an abundance mindset is important, but they point out a surprising flaw in how many of us approach it.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What's the flaw?
The author argues that many of us fall into a trap by constantly focusing on what we want. You know, we're always thinking, I want this or I need that.
Right.
And they suggest that this actually reinforces a sense of lack rather than abundance.
Wow, that's a really thought-provoking point.
Right.
It seems counterintuitive because we're told to visualize what we want and focus on our goals.
Right. But think about it. When you're constantly desiring something, you're essentially highlighting its absence in your life.
That's true. It's like the more you focus on what you don't have, the more you feel the lack of it.
Exactly. You're actually strengthening that feeling of scarcity, which creates a major blockage in your metaphorical river of abundance.
That makes a lot of sense. So if focusing on wanting is the problem, what's the solution?
Well, instead of focusing on what we lack, the author proposes cultivating an abundance consciousness.
Abundance consciousness. Okay, I like the sound of that. What does that involve?
It's about shifting our awareness to the abundance that already exists in our lives, rather than dwelling on what we perceive to be missing.
So it's about appreciating what we have instead of longing for what we don't.
Precisely. It's a subtle but powerful shift in perspective.
Can you give us a concrete example of what that might look like in practice?
Sure. The author uses a great example. Imagine you see a beautiful car in a shop window. You can appreciate its beauty, enjoy the feeling of abundance it represents without necessarily needing to own it.
Okay, I see what you mean. So it's not about denying our desires or pretending we don't want things. It's more about shifting our focus from a sense of lack to a sense of appreciation for what's already present.
Yes, it's about recognizing the abundance that's already all around us.
But how does this apply to other areas of our lives, like our finances or careers? I mean, it's easy to admire a car, but what about when we're facing real challenges and limitations?
That's a great question, and it leads us to one of the more challenging yet ultimately freeing concepts the author discusses, the power of embracing our own mortality.
Whoa, okay, that took a turn. I wasn't expecting that. How does embracing mortality relate to abundance?
It might seem unrelated at first, but stay with me. The author explains that confronting the reality of our own mortality can actually be a powerful tool for letting go of fear and attachment.
Okay, I'm listening.
We often cling to material possessions or external validations because we fear losing them. But if we truly accept the impermanence of life, those fears can start to loosen their grip.
So by acknowledging our own mortality, we can release the fear of loss and the desperate need to accumulate more.
Exactly. And this allows us to live more fully in the present moment, which is where true abundance resides.
It's a powerful concept. While embracing mortality can be a difficult thing to wrap our minds around, I can see how it can lead to a more profound appreciation for life and what we already have.
It's about recognizing that everything is temporary, and that's actually a beautiful thing.
It's like accepting the finite nature of our existence allows us to tap into a more infinite source of abundance within ourselves.
Beautifully said. And it ties back to the river analogy. Fear and attachment are like massive boulders, blocking the flow of abundance. By embracing our mortality, we can start to chip away at those boulders and allow the river to flow more freely.
This is really making me rethink my whole perspective on abundance. It's not just about material wealth or achievements, it's about a state of mind, a way of being in the world.
It's about aligning ourselves with the natural flow of life.
But let's be honest, most of us still have goals and ambitions. How does this concept of embracing mortality fit in with our desire to achieve and experience success? Do we just give up on our dreams?
Not at all. It's not about giving up on our dreams, but about shifting our motivation behind them. And this leads us to another fascinating concept the author critiques, the common self-help mantra to take massive action.
Isn't taking action essential for achieving our goals? What's the author's critique of that?
While action is definitely important, the author makes a crucial distinction between two types of action: inspired action and desperate action.
Okay, so it's not just about the amount of action we take, but about the energy behind it.
Precisely. The author argues that most of the action we take is driven by desperation, fear, or a sense of lack.
I see. So we're basically acting from a place of scarcity.
Exactly. And that kind of action often leads to more problems down the line.
So what's the alternative?
The author proposes that inspired action, which stems from a place of positivity, abundance, and alignment with our true purpose, is far more effective and fulfilling.
So it's about aligning our actions with our internal state of abundance rather than acting out of a sense of lack or desperation?
Yes. When we act from a place of inspiration, we tap into the natural flow of abundance, and our actions feel effortless because we're moving with the current, not against it.
I love that analogy. It's like we've been paddling upstream our whole lives when we could have been effortlessly floating downstream all along.
Exactly. And it highlights how much energy we waste fighting against the natural order of things.
This is giving me a whole new perspective on how to approach life's challenges and opportunities.
The key is to shift our approach and align ourselves with the flow of abundance.
I'm excited to dive into the practical applications of all this. How can our listeners start integrating these ideas into their lives and start experiencing more effortless abundance? Where do we even begin?
That's where the rubber meets the road, and that's what we'll explore in our next segment.
Can't wait. Okay, so we've covered some pretty profound concepts. This whole idea of the river of abundance, the trap of wanting, the power of embracing mortality, and the difference between inspired and desperate action. It's a lot to take in.
It is, right, but it's so fascinating.
It is. But I'm sure our listeners are eager to hear about the practical side of things. How do we actually put all this into practice in our daily lives?
Well, the author emphasizes that cultivating effortless abundance is a gradual process. It's not about making drastic changes overnight.
That's good to hear because it sounds like a lot.
It's more about those subtle shifts in our awareness and actions over time.
Okay, so we don't need to completely overhaul our lives to start experiencing this abundance.
Not at all.
What would be a good first step then?
The author suggests starting with awareness, just paying attention to your thoughts and feelings, especially in areas where you tend to experience lack or scarcity.
So becoming more mindful of our thought patterns.
Exactly. Notice when you get caught in that wanting trap, like when you're constantly thinking, I need this, or I wish I had that.
Right. So step one is to observe our thoughts and identify those blockages in our river of abundance without judgment.
Yes. Simply observe, don't judge.
Okay, got it. What comes after that?
Once you've developed this awareness, the PDF recommends focusing on one blockage removal technique each day.
Oh, like a daily practice.
Exactly. For example, one day you might focus on cultivating abundance consciousness, like we talked about earlier, appreciating what you already have.
Right.
And then the next day, you could consciously choose inspired action over a potentially desperate reaction.
I like that. It's like building those abundance muscles day by day.
Exactly. It's about consistency, not intensity.
But some of these concepts, like embracing mortality, they can feel pretty daunting. How do we approach those bigger blockages?
You don't have to conquer everything all at once. Remember, effortless abundance is not about forcing change, but about aligning with the natural flow.
Right. So even just acknowledging the existence of a blockage is a step in the right direction.
Exactly. It's about creating space for these shifts to occur naturally.
This approach feels much more gentle and sustainable than some of the more aggressive self-help advice out there.
It is. It's not about pushing or forcing. It's about allowing.
I'm really appreciating the author's balanced approach.
Mhm.
So often self-help advice can feel overwhelming, like we need to change everything at once. But this is more about taking small, consistent steps.
Exactly. It's about making those subtle shifts that add up over time.
What I also find refreshing is how the author blends practical advice with these profound philosophical insights. It's not just about manifesting material wealth, but about cultivating a deeper sense of fulfillment and alignment in all areas of life.
That's what makes it so powerful.
Like that section on embracing mortality, it was deep and thought-provoking, but ultimately led to a more empowering perspective on life.
It's about recognizing that by letting go of our fear of loss and attachment, we can experience a deeper level of abundance in the present moment.
It's like the less we cling to things, the more freely they flow into our lives.
It's a beautiful paradox, isn't it?
It is, and it makes you realize that abundance is not just about material wealth, but about a state of mind, a way of being in the world.
Absolutely. The PDF encourages us to redefine what abundance truly means for each of us. It's a personal journey, and there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
And that's what makes this deep dive so valuable. We're not providing a rigid set of rules, but rather exploring the underlying principles of abundance.
Exactly. It's about empowering the listener to unlock their own version of effortless abundance.
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this PDF. It's definitely a source that you can revisit time and time again and discover new insights each time.
Agreed. It's a gift that keeps on giving.
Well, we've come to the end of our deep dive into Effortless Abundance, the missing pieces to living an abundant life effortlessly. This PDF has been a real treasure trove of wisdom and insights.
It really has. And I hope our listeners are feeling as inspired and empowered as I am.
Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear your final thoughts. What are your key takeaways from this deep dive?
Well, for me, the biggest takeaway is that abundance isn't something we chase, but something we cultivate. It's about removing the internal barriers that prevent it from flowing naturally into our lives.
I love that. It's about shifting the focus from external pursuits to inner transformation.
Exactly.
Anything else that stood out to you?
I was particularly intrigued by the author's perspective on work. They suggest that many of us are expending so much energy struggling, worrying, trying to force things to happen, that we're actually depleting our own reserves of abundance.
It's not about working less, but working differently.
Yes. It's about aligning our efforts with the natural forces at play rather than struggling against them.
When we align with the natural flow of abundance, the actions we take feel effortless because we're moving with the current, not against it.
Beautifully said.
This brings up an important question for our listeners. If a life of effortless abundance is possible, what would that look like for you?
That's a powerful question to consider. What one small step can you take today to start removing those blockages in your own river of abundance?
Maybe it's starting each day with a gratitude practice, or consciously choosing inspired action over a desperate reaction. Or maybe it's simply taking a few moments to appreciate the abundance that already surrounds you.
Remember, the journey to effortless abundance is unique for each individual. There's no right or wrong way to approach it. It's about finding what works for you.
And that's the beauty of it. We're not prescribing a one-size-fits-all solution, but rather empowering you to create your own path to a life filled with abundance.
It's a journey of self-discovery, awareness, and alignment, and the rewards are immeasurable.
Well, folks, we've reached the end of our deep dive into effortless abundance, the missing pieces to living an abundant life effortlessly. We hope you found it as insightful and inspiring as we did.
We encourage you to continue exploring these concepts. Head over to our social media pages and share your thoughts, what resonated with you most, or what steps you plan to take to cultivate more effortless abundance in your own life.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep seeking knowledge. You know, this PDF has really changed how I think about abundance.
Oh yeah? In what way?
Well, it's not about just hustling more or getting more things.
Right.
It's about getting rid of those things inside us that are blocking the flow.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's like we already have abundance, but we're in our own way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What really stood out to me was that part about how we view work.
Oh yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. The author said we spend so much energy like struggling and worrying and trying to force things to happen. And that drains us. You know, it uses up our abundance.
It's like we're working against ourselves.
Yeah. So it's not about working less,
Right.
but working differently.
Working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. It's about aligning ourselves with how things naturally work
Going with the flow.
instead of fighting against it. It's
Yeah.
like we've been given this map to our own river of abundance, but we have to clear the path.
It's up to us to remove the obstacles.
And remember, it's not about like a huge overnight change.
It's a process.
Yeah, it's about aligning ourselves with that natural flow.
Effortless abundance.
Exactly. Effortless abundance. This PDF is really something else, I think. It
Yeah.
goes way beyond just money and stuff.
It does. It's about abundance in everything,
Our time, our energy relationships.
even our creativity.
So it makes you think, what would a life of effortless abundance look like for you?
That's the question, isn't it?
What's one little thing you can do today to start clearing your path?
Maybe start a gratitude practice.
Yeah, or do something from a place of inspiration instead of fear. Or just take a minute to appreciate all the abundance that's already there.
That's a good one.
We all have so much to be grateful for.
We do.
The journey to effortless abundance is going to be different for everyone.
It is.
There's no one right way.
It's about finding what works for you.
And that's the best part. We're not saying, do this and this will happen.
Right.
We're giving you the tools to create your own path to abundance.
Your own unique path.
It's about self-discovery and awareness and aligning yourself with the flow of life.
And the rewards are amazing.
This is it for our deep dive into effortless abundance, the missing pieces to living an abundant life effortlessly.
Such a great title.
I know, right? We hope you got a lot out of it.
Yeah. And keep exploring these ideas.
Come chat with us on social media
Tell us what you thought, what resonated with you.
and what you're going to do to cultivate more effortless abundance in your life.
We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep seeking knowledge.